So yeah, just introduce yourself to me, your name, and you know what your interest is.
Okay, my name is Jonathan Davies. I'm 55, and basically I've been an experiencer of the UFO phenomena all my life. Yeah.
So yeah, just John, tell me about your UFO experience.
Okay, and then this event happened on the 7th of October in 2010. It was about between 8 and 9 in the evening. My daughter, who was then 2 years old, wasn't speaking very much, but she was over by the conservatory windows, and she said bright. So I thought that's a good word, and I went over to see what she was looking at. It was obviously dark. That time of year in the UK is dark still. So she went over and I looked out the window, and my neighbour had tennis courts to the left of our property going down the hill, and there was a tree to the right hand side of the tennis court, and next to the tree at the same level of my house was an orange orb, a big massive orange orb. So obviously it's night, you know, it's not the sun. I have seen these orange orbs myself, but it still put me off guard a little bit because my daughter had seen it. I didn't expect her to be able to see these things as well, because nobody seemed to have been able to see them before me at this point. But anyway, as I'm watching this orange orb, it shot to the right, and we're on top of the hill, so it shot down into the estuary, onto a road that leads, or a track that leads out from the local castle, Obley Castle. And I thought it had crashed. It was literally blink and you miss it type speed. And because it went so fast, I thought, oh my God, I've never seen them up until that point move that fast. Normally they sort of mosey along. Just let me watch them mosey along. But this was like, boom, tic-tac speed, thousands of miles an hour it must have been. So I thought it had crashed, but there was no explosion, there was no noise. I opened the window at this point, and I'm looking out, and I've got a perfect view looking down on this object now. Even though it's like about half a mile from me, because I'm high, I'm looking down at it. So it's there now. It's orange still, and then all of a sudden it starts changing colours, like blinding flashes, like a lighthouse power of different colours of light. Booming out at me, and they seem to be directed towards me. And this is every few seconds a different colour. You know, it's crazy. And I'm thinking, no, I've never seen this before. This is something different. So I'm watching this. My daughter's next to me, and then another object appeared on the opposite coastline above the houses and Buryport and Llanelli, in that direction on the opposite coast, above the street lights. You could see there was cloud level. So this wasn't the moon or anything. This object was below the cloud level. It was a bright, huge object, white with green edging and blue-ish edging all around it. And it was directly between me and this object on the ground. So I'm watching this and thinking, what's going on? There's something strange going on. And then I can hear to my right, there is a noise of a helicopter, a Chinook helicopter coming in from the Gowerton to the north, the Gowerton village to the north. And I can hear this helicopter getting closer and closer, and it's very, very low to the ground, it was crazy low to the ground. It shouldn't have been, you know, that low to the ground, just a white and a red light. And I can hear the twin rotor of a military helicopter. I watched this object coming all the way. This object is now on the ground, has changed from an orange and colour to like a turquoisey, greeny blue colour. It's just that colour now, and that's unusual in itself. I've never seen them do that before. Normally they just stay orange, the orbs do, and you know, they don't change colour at all. Anyway, this helicopter comes up to the object that's on the ground. It gets very, very close, a few house width height away, and there's like a beam of light or a shaft of light between the two objects, and the helicopter vanished, totally vanished, and the sound of the helicopter completely vanished. But at the same moment that happened, it reappeared back in Gowerton, miles and miles away to the north. I could hear the same thing happen again. I watched this object do exactly the same thing again. Came in, flash of light between the two, vanish. Every time, 8 or 9 times. So this is going on. While I'm watching this, I wasn't looking to my left, and to my left was the south and the sea. And another object had been coming in, because I've been concentrating everything on the right. Okay, another object came in from the sea, like an emerald green coloured object, very low to the ground again. It came right up to the object that was on the ground, originally orange, now blue. The only way I can describe this is like it was a, imagine a Starship Enterprise, and they put a tractor beam on something and it shines a beam of light onto it and then pulls it away. Well, this is exactly what happened. The green object shone what looked like a light onto this object on the ground. It sort of gathered it up, and they both slowly moved out to sea, to the south. At this point, the helicopter vanished and never came back. The big white object that had been over Buryport, Llanelli, disappeared. Something I haven't mentioned is I was so captivated by this, I thought I'd better get some evidence, and I went down the bottom of the house. It was like a stepped barn conversion, and I went down to my office because I worked from home, and I had a massive pair of binoculars that I'd bought because we were living on the coast, and I literally had a new camera that I picked up 2 days previously, which all I'd done is put batteries in to check that it worked, just in case I had to send it back, you know. So I hadn't even used the camera at that point, never been used. Yeah. So I grabbed these and I brought them up, and I'm snapping away. So I've caught all these things that I've just discussed with you on, taking pictures of everything that took place. I've got this fake helicopter pictures. I've got the orange orb. You know, I've got the object above Buryport and Llanelli. I've got the object that came in from the sea. I've got a few other things that went on as well. You know, I'm not the best with a camera, I'll be quite honest with you. So, you know, and then I didn't know how to use the camera. I didn't even know it had a video function. You know, I'm gutted now that I could have videoed the whole thing for everyone else to see, and then they would, you know, they believed me that this happened. So the object went out to sea. I took pictures. I stood and watched. Again, there was absolutely no sound apart from the helicopter from all of these other objects. And that was that part of the story. The next day, or that night, I phoned the police because I thought I need to report this, because this is something I knew in my heart that this was, you know, part of the phenomenon, and I knew it was. But I wanted to know whether or not anyone had reported it to the police as well. So when I phoned the police, I basically said, I don't know whether it was a crash or something has happened. Have you had any other reports? There were no other reports. They kept me on the phone quite a while, asking other people in the building if they'd heard of anyone that reported anything. No, there was no police helicopter involved, so it wasn't them, and there were no other reports coming in. But they said keep us informed. I wasn't phoning them up, but every few weeks after this event, they would phone me up and ask me had I heard anything more, because everyone in the police station was so interested. Yeah. So that was that. Then the next day, I was listening to the radio. I watched the TV. There was nothing on the TV. There was nothing on the radio again. So I couldn't believe that nobody had seen this thing. Nobody reported it, because these blinding flashes of colour, you know, that had gone on out in the middle of nowhere, basically. So then the next day, like I say, I worked from home, and I'm looking out to my office, and on the view from my office was basically the view of where this object had landed. That was my daily view. And I'm looking out, and I can see there are 2 black vans parked right at the spot where this object had landed the previous night. And there seemed to be men moving around the area with what looked like metal detectors. That was strange, because basically I'd never seen anyone out on that track before, because basically it's an area that during the Second World War they used for munitions, and, you know, they would use as a firing range, and there was unexploded bombs out on that part of the area, and also I know that the local farmer doesn't allow anyone out on that track. I'd only ever seen the farmer himself out there in the 2 years that I'd lived there, maybe 2 or 3 times. So it was very unusual to see these strangers out there. So that was that. I phoned after my day, because I had a busy business. I phoned the local Coast Guard and said, did you have any operations going on? Because I wanted to rule everything out, basically. And they said, no, it was nothing to do with us. Phone the Cornish Coast Guard in England, because they sometimes came up and trained in that area. They told me, and so I phoned them, and no, there was nothing to do with them. I thought there's a RAF base on the opposite coast, and I phoned them as well, and I said, is it them? And they were quite annoyed with me because it was the end of the day, and it was like they thought I was some crazy guy that was reporting a UFO, and and so they didn't take kindly to me phoning them. I phoned Swansea Airport, even though I knew it's a local airport with small planes that don't fly after 5 o'clock. Basically, they haven't got the facility to do that. But I wanted to know whether anything had been caught on radar, whether they keep the radar on overnight and they'd caught something, but no, there was nothing. I wasn't getting anywhere. I listened again on the radio, I watched the news, there was nothing. I just couldn't believe it. So I thought I'll walk down the hill, we're at the village, and I'll knock on some doors and see if the neighbours caught anything, because I've seen all this, I've taken pictures, maybe they did. The problem with the village, even though it's a lovely village, it's a tourist village, and it tends to be empty outside of tourist season, so I didn't see anyone that I really knew. There was one person I think I knew, and I asked them, had you seen anything? And they said, no, we didn't see anything. And I couldn't believe they couldn't have heard the helicopter even, to look out this, because it was so close, the helicopter. Chinook is a massive military helicopter. It made a real noise, and for it to be vanishing, it was so strange. But no, there was nothing. And then I saw somebody who I think it must have been a tourist, and again, they hadn't seen anything. So I was getting really, really frustrated. I didn't get anywhere that day. A few weeks after this went on, I'll go on to other events that went on. It was over a 4-day period. It wasn't just that day. There was, a couple of days later, I was outside. My wife had gone out. Oh, I've forgotten to mention one part. I dragged my wife out of the shower at one point during this whole event when this flashing was going on. She was upstairs in the shower, and I was looking after my daughter. And she looked through the window as well. As she's not got an interest in this topic, like most people don't seem to have an interest in this topic at all. So she wasn't that interested. She said, "Oh, yeah, strange," but that was the extent of her interest. But I have a witness, so that's my wife is my only witness to this event. A couple of days later, I'm outside, and it's like the end of the year, and it's the last time you can cut the grass. And I had this robot lawnmower, and I'm taking my robot lawnmower across the driveway with a remote control to cut the grass. And as I'm doing that, this emerald object that had come in from the sea during the landing event reappeared, and this is daylight now, and it shot above my house. And it literally stayed there, and it was just shape-shifting. Like it was like an emerald jewel, and it was literally just above the height of the house, just above the roof, and it was shifting around like panels of light were shifting. And I watched this for a good couple of minutes, and it didn't do anything. There was no sound, and all of a sudden, then it shot into the middle of the estuary, down the length of my property into the middle of the estuary, and then took a crazy left turn. Like no jet could ever do, and shot out to sea. And as I'm watching that in disbelief, there's a roar behind the back of my head, and 2 fighter jets fly over the top of my house as low as this object had been, knock me off my feet, and I'm on top of the lawnmower as I watch the 2 fighter jets go out into the estuary and bank to the left and follow this object out to sea. So I was nuts. So again, I'm listening to the radio. I'm thinking it's daylight. Everyone must have seen this green emerald object on the jets. No, there's nothing on the radio. There's nothing on the TV. There's no witnesses. My wife has gone shopping with my daughter, so I didn't even have her this time. It was crazy. So then that happened, and then on a Sunday, we used to go up to my father-in-law's for Sunday lunch. And we drove up. We get to Cwmbran where they lived, and we get up to the traffic lights in Cwmbran there's a fire station. We stop, and I'm so obsessed now. I'm seeing things all the time. I look up in the car, and I look to my right, and there's a disc a few hundred feet above my car on a clear, completely cloudless day, and it's just sitting in the sky, and traffic lights, and there's people crossing the road, and I'm looking at these people and thinking, why are they not looking up at this disc? You know, what is the matter with them? Why it's you know, you couldn't miss it. It was just a dull grey disc in the sky. And my wife and my daughter are in the car. My wife couldn't see it because it was slightly to my right, and she's obviously at the other side of the car. We drive on the right-hand side in the UK. And my daughter's obviously too young. She's crying in the back, and my wife, like I said, she doesn't no interest in the topic, and she's just getting agitated because I'm shouting, "Here we go again," you know. And that was it. So I couldn't do anything. The lights change colour, and I drive off, and I get to my father-in-law's house, and I'm looking at this disc now from the car park, you know, and it's just still sat in the exact same spot, not doing anything. In the end, because I see things quite a lot, it was, you know, this was different because it was a disc, but because I see things a lot, I didn't really pay much attention to it. We didn't have camera phones in those days. There was no way of taking pictures of it that way, and I didn't have my camera from being in the house taking the photos of the landing with me, so I couldn't really get any evidence of that. But so that was the end of that.
Tell me about you know, any earlier accounts of strange events. You know, that 1983. Keep it short because we don't have that many visuals to go with it.
Okay.
So just...
An earlier encounter I had when I was 15, I basically found myself in a field a few miles from home, with no memory at all of how I got in the field. It was a dark field, you know. I'm literally become aware, I'm looking up at the sky, and as I'm looking at the sky, the whole sky just seemed to move. I thought I was looking at the stars, but as soon as these stars, or what I thought were stars, started to move, I realised that it was like a miles wide craft that was like 3 tiers. It was either 3 craft or it was one huge craft. There was banks of lights, a row of white lights, then another row of lights in the shape of a boomerang, and there was like 3 of these. I'm pretty certain that it was one giant craft, because I couldn't see the stars between these lights, and it was huge. I looked to my left and I couldn't see the end of it, and I looked to my right where the woods were on to my right, and that was miles away, and I couldn't see the end of it. So this craft was huge. As soon as it started to move, I felt I was in a bubble, and this bubble just burst, and I suddenly became aware of, you know, what am I doing in this field? And, you know, there was like a mist around the field, all around my ankles, and it was very eerie. I looked to my right and I saw that there was a leisure centre, and I got my bearings. I realised where I was in the fields of the local leisure centre. Again, I had no memory of any of it, so I watched this move away a bit, and then I literally thought, I didn't feel comfortable, and I thought, I got to get out of here because I didn't know, you know, what was I doing in this field. So I ran home, and when I got home, which was a few miles, I got to the front door and I thought, I better not go in because I don't know what I've done. I thought my mum and dad might have done something, and I'm going to get told off. So I went around the back of the house, and I had to go through the woods, and I went through the woods, and I came through the gardens. And then again, I didn't go through the door. I climbed up the drain pipe of the house and climbed in through the bathroom window, and went to bed. And in the morning, I expected to get told off by my parents because I must have done something. I didn't know what I'd done. You know, I was very confused about it all, and I was a bit upset about it all. And anyway, I came downstairs the next morning. My parents didn't say a word to me about it. There was no reaction at all. There was, you know, as far as they were concerned, I'd gone to bed early and I'd been upstairs all evening, and they didn't know I'd even been out. My mum said to me, "Why didn't you clean your rugby boots?" Because you know, that was the extent. That actually gave me the date. Actually, it was the 19th of January 1983 that told me the dates, because it turned out there was a major event that evening where different shaped craft was seen right across South Wales. I found out from a friend who's an author, basically. He was telling me to tell him some of the things that had happened to me, and I explained what had happened. Then he said, "Oh, that sounds like the night of the triangles, 19th of January 1983. You should talk to the guys at SUFON in Swansea UFO Network." So I found out more from there. I didn't even know about these incidents until then. But that night, basically, there were craft right across South Wales. Giant triangles were seen. A rugby game got stopped by the referee as a giant triangle passed over the pitch. A man got pushed off a bicycle. A low-flying craft went past him. The local school children in Cardiff all came to school the next day and were told to draw pictures of what they'd seen, because they were all telling the teacher they'd seen craft that night. In Swansea, there were lots and lots of sightings. There were 2 police officers that reported seeing a rectangular craft the size of a football field, and they actually gave that story to the RAF, who phoned the local police station to find out what was going on, and they reported that, and that got it reported in. It's in the National Archives now, actually, that story, these 2 police officers. There was a factory in Swansea where people were working that evening, and the lights of the factory were going off in stages as a craft passed over the top of the factory. There were rooftop UFOs being reported by people just walking outside their house, and there would be something just above the house. There was a couple of people. I mean, literally, I believe SUFON have taken about 65 different interviews now of people who have reported seeing things that night, but the local press and also the national press reported the incident. It was in the Daily Mirror. Yeah, it was a major event that doesn't really get covered for some reason, yet it seems to have been the biggest mass sighting in UK history.
Now, thinking about these experiences, how has that sort of impacted your life, or how you view things in any way?
Well, as I've said, I've seen things literally since I was a child, so I knew these things were real. So it doesn't have quite as the impact that it might have on other people. I've never needed any sort of therapy or anything like that. I've never gone into regression because to be honest, I've got my answers because I keep seeing these things. I know they're real, and obviously I didn't want to be affected by anything really bad. The incident where I had missing time. I didn't mention when I had the incident when I was 15, when I saw the giant craft. There was about an hour, maybe 2 hours of missing time. So I didn't really want to have regression and find out what had happened, to be honest with you, because I didn't want to have any bad things, any bad thoughts.
How do you feel that some people are maybe cynical about things you've genuinely seen yourself?
Yeah, I mean, understandable. I mean, basically the governments of the world have helped cover up the topic. They've brainwashed the public via the media, which they've got control of, and so people have, it's been stigmatised. So that there's a giggle factor. If you watch the news and there's a UFO story, they tended to play the X-File music, and the presenters would have a little giggle just before they'd say anything and just after they'd say something. So it was never taken seriously. So it's pretty understandable that the public wouldn't believe this. But what the public doesn't realise is this is worldwide. This is major. This is real. This is happening. This has always happened. Something is here.
Fantastic. Great answer. We can continue going because it's only slight rain. Have you heard about UFOs at Skinwalker Ranch in Utah?
Yeah, I'm an avid watcher of the Skinwalker show. I've always watched that. I'm good friends with the former team that investigated the ranch when Bob Bigelow owned the ranch. I'm good friends with Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis. They were both in the NIDS team. I'm also a friend to Brandon Fugal, the owner of the ranch now, and Travis Taylor and Jay Stratton, who are doing some of the investigation work there. So yeah, I'm very interested in that. And
what do you think of the science behind what they do?
Well, I think there is actually real science going on. A lot of people say that it's a show and it's it's entertainment, and okay, there's entertainment value to watching the show, but there's real things going on there, and they are documenting this. We're only really seeing a few hours of evidence, but there's thousands of hours of work that has gone into just those few hours that get shown. So it's easy to say no, it's not real and it's just entertainment, but no, there's real things going on, and I'm one of the lucky people that gets to hear some of the things that do go on that don't get reported.
It's really good. This weather's turning a little, but I think that's the majority of it. There's a couple of pieces to camera they would like from you, which is, where's that gone now? Yeah, like an impact statement. So looking straight to camera and delivering a line like, you know, I believe these were trailers or short little clips. You know, I know what I saw.
Yeah.
You know, just whatever you feel. You know.
There's something I do want to say and I can't get it in my
Keep
head.
it really punchy. There's a lot of stigma attached to this topic, but I know what I saw.
Yeah, I'm annoyed by it.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I want that
That's
to
why
come across.
I am so annoyed by it. You know, like I don't want to come across as aggressive, but I am aggressive. You know, it really does annoy me.
A little disgruntled, not aggressive.
Yeah, so angry.
Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
Look to camera. Tell me how you feel about people that don't believe you and are cynics with no knowledge.
They're basically people that have no knowledge, and this is, you know, it's understandable they have no knowledge. If you haven't seen something, you're going to be cynical about it and you're not going to believe it. But, you know, this is coming out. This is going to happen. In America, this is happening right now in Congress. Changes are being made, and this will be seen in the coming months to come in. This is 2023 when we're filming this, and you will see come July, August of this year that we are not alone. This is going to come out, and there is much more to this than meets the eye.
And are you 100% convinced about what you saw? Just make a statement.
Yeah, I'm absolutely convinced that what I've seen is real. If it had happened once, I might question it, but this has happened all my life. I've seen multiple objects on multiple occasions, and sometimes it goes on for weeks.
How real are they to you?
They are 100% real.
Try that one once more. How real are they to you?
God, sorry, it's so emotional.
Bang it out, mate. Bang it out. Bang it out.
That's okay.
Get your feeling across.
The emotion's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
The emotion
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, for me, this is 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, non-stop research based on the fact that I've seen so many things that I'm trying to find answers. You know, I wouldn't be wasting my time on this. I'm a businessman. It has affected my business. It has affected my life. But it's based on real things that have happened, and I'm just out for answers, and I'm out to help everyone get answers. And I want this to be a humanity-changing event when this does come out.
And do you feel frustrated that, you know, it's a neglected topic?
Yeah, it's understandable that it's a neglected topic when basically the media is so controlled that it never gets spoken about. I live in the UK. In America, they tend to talk about this quite a lot on the news now, because things have been happening in America with the US government changing, you know, the way things are reported, and they have basically come out and admitted, yes, there are things in our skies, we don't know what they are. But in the UK, this is still heavily stigmatized. We don't get told anything. The things that are going on in America do not get reported in the UK, or very rarely. There's nothing been on the BBC, there's nothing been on Sky. And it is beyond frustrating to anyone who's involved in the topic who wants the answers to come out.
Do you want the truth to come out? You want honesty from government?
This is all we want. This is all
Tell
we
me
want.
that, those were my words.
I want the truth to come out. I want everyone to become aware that we are not alone. There is something else here.
Excellent. Really good. Really, really
Yeah.
good.